I believe Mike Varney, who's the head of the record company, approached Jim and said, how about doing like some kind of a supergroup project?
I had this idea, and I've had it for a long time, to do something with Robben Ford, because Robben and I go way back. And then I thought about kind of a modern day trio, doing possibly some vocal things, but more or less doing some instrumental stuff, kind of channeling groups that I was huge fans of, like the Cream or Led Zeppelin, with Robben and a drummer. And the drummer I thought of was Vinnie.
To be honest with you, like many great beginnings, especially in my case, I usually drop blanks. If someone says, how did you meet your best friend, you know? I don't know. So I think what happened is that Jimmy orchestrated the thing.
Because the band is, it's really a studio group. You know, we've done next to no touring. I mean, we went to Japan for 10 days, and we went to Oakland, where we recorded a live album. So that's all the live playing the band has done.
Robben came up with the name. We had no name at the time. Robben had an idea to call the band Jing Chi.
Jing means essence, and Chi means energy. So it's like essential essence. It's like the energy that you're born into the world with. And so it's just got a very vital, strong, you know, imagery. And what I bring to the picture is kind of this blues quality with some harmonic sophistication. Jimmy comes out of more of a rock and jazz background. And then Vinnie is like the greatest drummer in the world, plays with everybody. So it's a special little group, and we do seem to have a chemistry that almost surprises me. So there's some chemistry, there's a lot of common history between us. And everybody loves music, loves to make music, loves to play. So you get in a situation where you're playing with basically, you know, some of the best musicians in the world. It's pretty exciting.
Oh, we got it.
I think we got it.
We got it.
Before I played the guitar, I played the saxophone. My older brother Patrick had taken up drums and was playing in the junior high band. The band was playing at the school. You know, one evening, I went with my mother to watch. At a certain point, alto saxophone player came out front, and he was featured on a piece of music. But I had the epiphany. I just went, Mom, that's what I want to do. That's it, right? Whatever that is right there, that's what I want to do. And a couple of weeks later, my mother got me an alto saxophone, and I just flipped out. If there was a musical instrument around, I was going to pick it up and play it, you know. So my father played the guitar a little bit, so I would play his guitar. There was a record behind the counter at a music store in our hometown. No one knew who it was, but it was a rather badass-looking group of guys called the Paul Butterfield Blues Band. And I bought the Butterfield record, took it home, and started listening to it, and, you know, my hair just stood on end, you know. This was the greatest thing I'd ever heard in my life, and that's what gave me my direction.
Started playing trumpet when I was 7, but around when I was 13, I went to a dance, and I saw pretty much, I guess, my first electric band. And until then, I'd only seen bands with string bass. And all of a sudden I saw this guy playing an electric bass, and I thought, oh, how cool is that? Shortly thereafter that, a bunch of friends of mine were putting a little band together to do some parties during a summer break. And they needed a bass player. So bought a bass and learned a bunch of tunes and started playing with this band and just had a ball.
I remember doing it ever since I can remember, and setting up pots and pans and having toy drum sets, kits that I kept breaking and my folks kept getting me new ones. Finally, one day, it was my mother. I was playing along to a Temptations song on the radio, and she said, you know, why don't you maybe think about taking some lessons? So I went into the band director's office, and he goes, okay, here's a pair of sticks. There's a practice pad. Lesson 1, you hold the sticks like this. Okay, and so I came out of there less than a half an hour later, and it was probably that first light bulb moment, hit over the head kind of epiphany that I had. And I literally walked out of there, and I remember walking away from his office with my back to the door. I paused, and I said, this is what I'm gonna do, period. And I just immersed myself. So I had this laser-like focus, but there was no plan B, no plan C. I just dove in and said, this is it, no matter what.
We lived 2 hours away from San Francisco, so we would drive down and go to the Fillmore Auditorium, Winterland, Avalon Ballroom, and we saw everybody play. You know, Hendrix, Led Zeppelin, Cream. On one of the first trips down, I think it was Jimi Hendrix, and I believe John Mayall and the Blues Breakers was on the bill before Hendrix, and the opening act was Albert King. I walked into the room and Albert King was playing, and it was so quiet, and he was playing so light but so intensely. The vibe was so deep, and I just never forgot it. So I got into that a lot. That was a moment, you know, profound moment, musical lesson. So I see what you're saying. Play that 3 times and then play the riff. Okay, gotcha.
Last time.
Jing Chi is a unique project for all 3 of the musicians that are involved. Jing Chi has an element of the blues to it, but it's also rock-based, it's jazz-based, it's fusion-based. There's some other things that are mixed in there, and the blend, both taking what Robben contributes as well as what Jimmy and what Vinnie contribute, is a really unique amalgam.
So 3 times on the chords.
And the riff.
And then the riff 4 times, and then 3 times on the chords, and the riff.
Yeah.
All 3 of these guys have known each other for a long time. They're friends, they've played together, they've worked together. It's really interesting watching Robben and Jimmy, you know, sitting right in front of each other with their instrument in hand, watching it evolve, watching it change. Sometimes very little, if no conversation going on other than them just playing. So then Vinnie will come in and start playing, and the song will take a completely different turn. And they all have that effect on each other. Every element that gets added, the synergy starts getting bigger and bigger. And that's the cool thing about the 3 of them as a band. They capture that vibe from each other fast and furious, and it sounds great.
Okay, let's do it. For the most part on this record, I've brought the songs that we're recording. There is a thread, you know, running through them.
We did have a pretty solid idea when we came out here. Robben had been listening to this kind of more vintage R&B film music. The best example I could give is like music from Ocean's 11.
But it's intentionally kind of left open and not too literal, so that people can bring whatever it is they want to bring to the party.
It's one of these projects where it just takes shape. We're all kind of open books, you know?
There's definitely some improvisation involved, which takes a lot of trust amongst musicians, and we have that because we've been playing together for so long.
Michelangelo had a hammer and a chisel. There was no Command Z, no unlimited levels of undo. You can't undo it. So it's really fresh in that regard, and fun.
We work pretty quickly. These things come together pretty quickly. This is a little more improvisational. It's instrumental music, and everyone's contributing.
It does have some surprises and some twists and turns.
Sorry, get me in after the first two chords, you know. I struck up a relationship with Roland Corporation in direct regard to this amplifier right here, the Blues Cube. I think most people know I'm very choosy about my sound, and I wouldn't endorse or play through something that I didn't really like. And right now we're recording a new album, and I am using the Blues Cube with my own personally designed tone capsule. And it's working. It's working very well. We arranged for them to come to my house. They brought a couple of amplifiers, and we did the dialing in of the sound. And he sat with a computer, you know, and I would say like more high end or more this or more that. I started being blown away by what was happening right there before my eyes and before my ears. I like to say this, you know, when representing Roland, because I do really like this. I just played it for 2 weeks in Japan. I was on the road with Sadao Watanabe. It was great. Everybody loved it. I like a clean sound, you know, I like to hear the pickups, and I like to hear the wood, you know. But what's really, I think, special about this product is that you're not going to get any closer to my sound than this. This is a really great development, and I love the company. Wonderful people.
So it's funny, because my story with Gretsch started when I was a student at Berkeley. I wanted a Gretsch drum kit really badly. I wanted a kit just like my hero, Tony Williams. So I saved up money, and I remember me and my roommate, we drove to New York, and I went to this place called Professional Percussion Center in New York. So I said, I want this Gretsch drum set just like Tony Williams, this yellow drums. And he said, you know, that's a custom color. There's only, you know, 4 people in the world that have it. Tony, Elvin Jones, Jan Hammer, and some guy in Sweden or Denmark. I said, okay, I'll be number 5. So, you know, I plopped my money down and I ordered these drums. I waited months, and then finally, he said, yeah, your drums are here. We drove back to New York from Boston, but I had these drums and I loved the drums so much. So that really began my whole love affair with Gretsch. And then eventually I met up with Mr. and Mrs. Gretsch, and we just started talking. We sort of struck up a friendship, and they were, I thought, well, these are really great people, you know? So it's a great thing for me, and it just became my voice, my sound, the whole sound of the instrument. And it's amazing because, you know, it all started with me wanting to have the same drums that Tony had and all of that with the same color. But really, above and beyond all that, it was the sound of the drums, the particular kind of timbre that the drums have, and the way that they play, and the way that they sound, and I can tell instantly that it's a Gretsch drum. I'm right at home, and I know the sound I'm getting, I know the feel I'm getting, and everybody says, wow, these drums sound great, and of course they do. I feel like I could exhale now, you know.
I don't really hear the delay. Is that in yet? Okay.
The thing about guitar players is they're all the same and they're all completely different. Robben's approach into how he hears his guitar cabinet is not the traditional SM57 right up against the grill cloth of the cabinet. He likes the microphone back away from the cabinet. He wants to hear reflection. He wants to hear the wood floor, the glass of the window that it's next to. He wants vibe.
Turn it up more. There it is. I like that.
So on every guitar track on this record, all of the microphone combinations are a Shure SM57 and a Royer 121, diaphragms right next to each other, about 8 inches in front of the speaker on the cabinet. So Jimmy plays bass backwards. It is interesting, the few times you get somebody who's right-handed playing a left-handed bass or vice versa. And Jimmy's doing that. And he plays great, his tone is great. And with bass, the tone and articulation always comes from the player's fingertips. So first and foremost, DI track, straight into a compressor in the Pro Tools. The other track, the amp track, he was playing with two 12-inch speaker cabinets, and I had a Shure KSM 44 in cardioid about 6 inches in front of one of those cabinets. For the most part, Jing Chi is an instrumental band. So Robben's guitar is our lead singer. It has to sound like $1 million. So guitar in the big room with some room mics, make that sound glorious and as big as you can. Drums in the booth. Now that booth is misleading. It is a smaller room than the big space, but it has a very tall ceiling and it's got that glass door in front of it. I love drums in that room, especially with drummers like Vinnie who are so articulate. It picks up everything from the quietest little ghost notes to as much bashing as he's going to do. Vinnie has that magic to take the simplest composition or the most complex composition and bring it to life. He plays Gretsch Drums, and Gretsch Drums are an industry standard when it comes to recording. I think it has a lot to do with that layer of gumwood in the manufacturing. It gives them that great sound that they have, and that's why they appear on so many studio recordings. Now to mic Vinnie's drums, we were using predominantly Shure microphones and a couple Royer ribbon mics. On the 22-inch kick, we had 2 microphones. On the inside of the kick drum, Shure Beta 52, industry standard. Outside the kick drum, a couple inches out, a Royer 122 ribbon microphone. On the snare drum, Shure SM57, top and bottom, flipping the phase on the bottom microphone at the preamp, so the polarity between the top and bottom snare is the same with the waveforms. Small diaphragm condenser microphones, great for hi-hat, cymbals, sometimes overheads, acoustic instruments. I'm not a fan of small diaphragm condensers that hype the sound. They're bright, they hype up the top end so everything cuts through. The Shure KSM 141 small diaphragm microphones don't have that top end hype. They're very natural. Sounds great on the hi-hat, sounds great on the ride cymbal, which we used on both. Vinnie was playing with 2 rack toms and 2 floor toms. On the rack toms, we were using Shure Beta 98 microphones. Sometimes you see those clipped on live. You don't have to use the clip. In the studio, you can use a microphone stand so you don't actually have to touch the drum. On the floor toms, Shure KSM 44 large diaphragm condensers. Large diaphragm condenser microphones sound huge on toms. On the overheads, I used a combination of Shure Beta 181 cardioid small diaphragm condensers and a Royer SF12 stereo microphone directly above the kit. The idea behind this was not to use both of them at the same time. The Royer microphone is obviously warmer, it's a ribbon element. The small diaphragm Shure microphones are brighter, they're condenser microphones. The idea behind this, using 2 different sets of overheads, was that we would have choices in the mixing process. If you want one song to be warmer, darker sounding, go with the ribbon on top of the drums. If you want another song to cut through and be a little bit edgier, go with the small diaphragm condensers. You have the option of actually blending and using both of them. The polarity thing only becomes a problem when there is significant differences between the capsule of the microphone in relation to another capsule. When they're directly even, same height off the ground, you're not going to have that issue.
The experience at Sweetwater has been just incredible. I mean, 5 stars, you know, on every level. For me, I have never been more comfortable recording anywhere, anytime in my life. Right here in this chair, in this room.
It's just been absolutely fantastic. It's, I have to say, one of the best experiences I've had in quite a while, working in a room with house engineer Mark Hornsby is fantastic.
He's just a great first-class engineer, man. So, wow.
The gear selection is off the hook here, so you can get pretty much anything you need.
I mean, this whole place is like a self-contained ecosystem that's amazing for musicians.
People here are ready to just throw out the red carpet. Hospitality, the whole 9 yards. It's an incredible facility. So I would work here at the drop of a dime anytime.
This is a great thing. I show up, I can play my drums, they sound great, the recording sounds great, the people are great, and I'm happy.
This won't be the last time I come here to work, that's for sure. Love this place, love the people, it's just been wonderful.